Continuing where we left off, in this video we will learn how to format data, format an individual cell, and how to import data. And then we'll learn how to reformat text to data. Our customer data, which we worked with in the last video, is lacking formatting. The first row of information is what is known as header information. This shouldn't be confused with page headers. These are data field headers. And the simplest way to format data headers would be to select the cells, and on the homepage ribbon, we'll bold the font and align center. A better way to format the data is to transform it into an Excel table. To create an Excel table, we select all the data. We'll start with A1, scroll to the bottom, hold our Shift key down on the keyboard and select the last piece of data, which selects the entire table. We see our entire table is now selected. Now, on the Home Ribbon tab, we'll select Format as Table, and we see that we have many different color options. And since we do have a data header row, we'll select something in this area where the data header row is going to be a different color than the rest of the document. So we'll select Green Table Style Medium 14. It fills in the where is the data for your table because we've already selected it. We do want to make sure that my table has headers is checked in this case, and then select OK. And we note that Excel recognizes the table as having fields. Next to the headers now are down arrow selector buttons. When chosen, these selector buttons allow us to sort our data or filter our data. In this case, if we want to sort by the last name, since we selected the down arrow next to the last name, let's go ahead and sort it alphabetically. You'll notice that it selected the whole table for us so that all of the information that belongs in a particular record of information all goes together. And now our customers are sorted alphabetically by their last name. We will do more sorting of data in future videos. For now, let's format this worksheet so that anyone opening it will know exactly what type of data they are looking at. First, we'll highlight the whole first row or the header row by selecting on row 1, and then on the number 1, we'll right-click, select Insert, and we see that it puts a row there. We could also highlight several rows, and in this case, let's highlight 5 full rows. Right-click anywhere on that selection, select Insert, and it inserted 5 more rows for us. We'll enter customer table for XYZ company, which is nice, but it doesn't stand out. So we'll select that cell, change the font a little bit, change the font size, and let's make sure that all of the cells are merged and centered, which we find the option on the Home Ribbon tab, Merge and Center. And let's put a border around our label. Again, on the Home ribbon, we'll find in the font grouping the border option, we'll select the down arrow and put a thick outside border around the label. The last two things we'll do with this particular worksheet is to make sure that all of the labels can be read. So we're going to select the sheet and double click in between any one of the lines, which widens all of our columns wide enough now that we can read all of the information. And last, on the sheet tab itself, we'll double click its name and change it to what this information is, customer information. Next, we'll import some inventory. Our home office sends us reports of the different inventory productions and what we've sold. This file that we're looking at is a text file opened up in Notepad on a Windows computer. On a Mac, you can open it up in TextEdit. Depending on how your reports come in is what the data looks like. In this case, we see that our data is separated by tabs of information. We want now to put this information into Excel. And rather than copy and paste, because there's some problems with that, especially if the information contains currency, we want to actually import it. So going back to Excel, we'll select the Data tab, and in the first grouping, Get and Transform Data, we notice that there is a selection that says From Text or CSV Files. We'll select that option, browse till we find the file, and in this case it's the Production Inventory TXT file, and select Import. Now, depending on where your data is coming from, you may need to select all files to make sure that you're finding the right file. We'll select Import. It presents us with what the information will look like inside of Excel. It tells us the type of file that it came from, what the delimiter is, meaning how did it decide to separate the information, and in this case it recognized by tabs. And it's showing us that the first 200 rows is what it used to detect this from. When we select Load, we notice that a panel opens on the right-hand side that says Queries and Connections, because it didn't just import the data, it connected to that particular file. And when we make any changes to this file, we can refresh the information in our worksheet in Excel. Since we don't need to work with the panel anymore, we'll go ahead and close that. And we're not going to do any sorting, so we want to turn off our filter selection buttons. And if we look in our table design, because it's created a table for us, we can turn off the filter button. Since we created our customer information table in green, let's change the color of our production inventory to something else. If you're selected anywhere within the table, you have the Table Design tab and all of its options. We can use the scroll bars to find some other colors, and in this case, let's just make it blue. And just as we did on the customer information table, let's make sure that the production inventory worksheet is labeled properly. So we'll select the first 6 rows, right-click, Insert, and now we've got a place to write production inventory for this year. And don't forget, we want to make this stand out, so we'll select the words. We'll change the font. We'll change the font size, and we'll merge it across several cells. Now we want to import into our Excel workbook a list of potential clients. This list also was passed on to us from another system in our company. So on the Data tab, we'll select Get Data from a file that was sent to us. We'll select the text CSV and select Prospective Clients and import. It once again presents us with the data, and we notice that the first, last name, email, all the labels are all in one box, and the headers will come in differently. We'll have to deal with that first, but let's go ahead and load the data. And we'll close our queries and connections. We'll want to get rid of this row because it's really useless. To get rid of the whole row, we select the row, right-click, and delete. It moves all the information up one. We have our first and last names, our email addresses, and phone numbers. So these two headers are going to be easy to make the changes. This is their email, and this is their phone number. But looking at this information, we want to make sure that we've separated our first name from our last name. And to do that, we're going to use what's known as text to data. We do this by selecting, again, the Data tab. And in the Data Tools area, we've got Text to Columns. We need to first insert, and we'll select the B to select the whole email column. We'll select right-click and insert. And now we've got another column. This is going to be our first name. This is going to be our last name. So let's go ahead and change the names of those columns. And now we're going to select the first column, and on our Data tab, in the Data Tools grouping, we'll select Text to Columns. And the difference between delimited and fixed width is it's looking for a fixed number of characters if we choose fixed width. We want delimited, and it's showing us what it possibly would look like. Let's select Next. And we know that there's no comma or anything in between. There's no tab in between the first and last name, but what there is a space. So we'll uncheck tab and check space. Now, if there had been a comma, we would have checked comma. If it could have been something like a dash or a star, we would have put other and the star or the dash, whatever it might have been. In this case, we've got space. It shows us a sample down in the lower preview window. When we select Next, we have an opportunity to change the different types of information that's in the different columns. And if this had been currency or some other sort of type, we would change it. But for now, we'll just leave it at General and select Finish. It says there's already data in the last name column, but there really isn't. It's just the last name label. So we'll select OK. And we see that what has happened was where we put last name, it replaced that information. So we just need to fix our labels again. So first name and last name. And now we're almost done with importing data and formatting our spreadsheets. But to be consistent with the other two spreadsheets, let's go ahead and select the first 6 rows, right-click and insert, put a label of what this data is, format the font and the font size, merge the cells, and make sure that our labels are correct down here. We don't need the number 2 on there if you happen to have it. That happens if we've pulled in the same data twice. Now let's move our customer information into the first position by dragging it over to the left, putting our prospective clients next to our customers, and then the production inventory last. And clicking anywhere in the prospective customer table, let's change the color to orange. In our next video, we'll look at how to customize Excel to meet our options and look at the different views within Excel.